Blue in the Diary by Cam Cleet. This is what it looks like. I just got this from the library today. Okay, chapter 1. A suspicious stranger. A penny for your thoughts, Nancy Drew, said George Vaughn. You've been staring into space for nearly 10 minutes. And missing all the good food, adding blonde Bess. This slightly plump, pretty girl reached for a third sandwich. George, said Nancy to Bess's slim, short-haired cousin, who enjoyed her boy's name. I'm wondering about that darling Susan child and her mother. I wish we could do something to help them. You mean, said Bess, find Mr. Susan or the money his wife told us he had promised to send. Yes, Nancy answered. It's very mysterious since apparently he has been away for some time. I wonder if his letter counting his money order were stolen. That's a fertile offense, George said grimly. The three girls scented beneath a separating roadside maple tree and were enjoying a picnic supper. The peaceful spot was halfway between the town of River High and Sandy Creek, where they had attended a popular animal convention. Converal? I just for you guys to Beth chuckled. If there's a thief around, Nancy will capture him. We'll capture him. She reached for a deviled egg. Count me in, to which she simply, if it's not too dangerous. I wouldn't count on it not being dangerous, said George. You know, Nancy, the young Smith smiled and the remark, but in a moment, because serious again, all of Nancy's friends agreed that she posed an incredible appealing quickly, which people never forgot. Nancy was pretty in a detective way. Her eyes were blue, her hair was tinted blonde. She expressed her opinions firmly, but did not force them on others. Nancy's abilities of leadership were welcome and depended on in other groups. With Bess and George, Nancy had made the drive to Sandy Creek in her convertible. From the brief talk, whip to the airplane swings that they had left nothing untried, and true to her response. Nancy had under dead and invader. Her attention had been drawn to a little girl and her mother among a carnival crowd. They had been looking on wasteful, but had taken no part in the fun. Nancy and her friend had sensed that the mother could not afford admission tickets on impulse. The girl had invited them to go along on several rides. The three had fallen in love with 5-year-old Honey. She was a bright and appealing child, and spite of the fact that she looked unnourished or dressed, though neat, was folded. Her Honey was so adorable. Nancy might have to herself. Yes, she Kimberly was. Bessie agrees. We must see the Swissons again. Nancy said thoughtfully, I could bear to think of the little girl going without the things she needed. Well, visit the Josephsons family someday soon. At their home, you wrote down the address. Didn't you, Bessie? Bess? Yes. It won't be easy to do things for Miss Susan, George predicted. That woman is proud. You can see that. I know, Nancy admitted. She didn't like our paying for others at the carnival, but for Honey Sack, she allowed it. Bess, gazing toward the west, observed that the sun was sinking below the horizon. "We'd better be on our way," she declared. The girls arose and put the food wrapping into the car. They had pulled into a side road. Now Nancy carefully centered the convertible over the rough road to the main highway, then headed for River Heights. After the first few miles, Bess slumped down and wearily leaned her head back against the seat. While gazing out the window, nice homes along the road, she observed particularly. Mostly country estates, George added. Look at the large white house on the hill. Nancy pointed towards one with spectacular grounds and a wood behind it. Isn't it a dream? The lawns are so well kept. The lawns are so well kept. Just my idea of a country place. Wonder who owns it? George added. Nancy had no choice to reply. Suddenly there was tremendous explosion, and in an instant the lovely white house on the hillside burst into flames. Tugs, tugs, tugs of flame leaders from the windows and doors. "There may be people trapped inside," Nancy cried out. "We must help them." She drove frantically towards the building house, pressing the audio 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 mutable horn increasingly, hoping to attract the attention of the neighboring residents. As the girl passed other Ventureless, Bess and George shouted and pointed towards the house on the hill. "We'll need all the help we can get," Nancy was gremling. "If anyone is to be rescued." The convertible swung into the driveway and headed up the hill towards the burning building. "There may be people trapped inside," Nancy cried. Here it is. That's the picture. At a glance, it was apparent to the girls that the house could not be saved. Nancy stopped the car, and three jumped out. "If there was people trapped inside," George explained, as they dashed towards the house, "how can we ever save them?" The girls scanned the window silently, but could see no one. Already, the smoke was thick, and the heat warned them that they could not enter, at least not far from the front. "I'll try the back," Nancy told the cousins. "That smoke may not be so dense there. You better take the car to the nearest house and phone the fire department." As Bess and George hurried off, Nancy quickly rounded the house, only to be met by a heavy cloud of smoke being carried by the wind. It made her cough and choke, and for a minute her eyes burned so that she could barely see. Nancy started forward again, then hurriedly hurled abruptly as she caught sight of a man about to crawl through the black canopy. He seemed to be running away from a burning building. Did this mean he might have set the house on fire? "Stop!" Nancy cried. The man turned his head, and in the glare of the fire, she caught a momentary but clear glimpse of his face. He was very blond, ruby Clementson complications and square jaw. Instead, her world crawled through the thick, hard hedicle. I said that's sort of like hedicle, hedige, and visioned his uh, attention were those of a guilty person. Nancy caught who was he. She wondered. Nancy saw him again when he stood up behind the Heggie Hedige. The man was tall and grunt and poorly dressed. He didn't look like a criminal, she thought, but his identification might prove relatively unimportant to the authorities. Nancy had an expressive talent for detective work. She was the only child of Constance Drew, a widely known lawyer. Miss Drew had passed away when Nancy was a very young child, and daughter and father had become close companions. They often helped each other on cases. The first mystery Nancy had solved was the secret of the old clock. And volatiling her in a dangerous search for a missing well. Since then she had seriously crippled others unusual case. Nancy's most recent adventure, carrying around a stranger white robin clam, clear up the mysterious Redgate farm. As Nancy stood staring after the stranger who had disappeared into the woods, she heard fire engines cling up to the door. She dashed to the front and met George and Bess. Breathless from running, neighbors were arriving from all directions, some afoot, others into automobiles. The sight of the burning building had attracted passing motors, and the driveway was quietly jammed with cars. The firemen realized at once nothing could be saved, but plain heavy streaming of water on the house. The firemen barely success in keeping the blaze from spreading to the out, outer outbuilding. What a shame! Such a beautiful house had to burn, Beth remarked as the girls watched the firemen work. I hope the owners aren't in there. A woman who was staring nearby turned to answer. The Roberts house had been closed all summer, so I guess no one is inside. I hope not, Nancy murmured. So Mr. Ray Bolt didn't know of his boss, Beth commanded. What a blow it will be. Oh, I guess Miss Robel can stand it. The woman returned indifferently. Indifferently, her husband had particularly up money. Particularly up money. You know them then? Nancy questioned. The woman shook her head. Only by pretense. I live near here. Only by residence. I live near here. Sorry. But the robots were never neighborly. Have they a large family? Nancy asked. No, there are only the two of them, and there's a pair of robots thinking it's a bit too good for anyone around here. Nancy and her friend gathered that the owner of the residence house were far from real life. In spite of the repressed effects of the fireman, it was impossible to keep the blaze under control. Nancy noticed with alarm that the wind was startling, raising the bearing to the north. At any moment, the outbuilding might in, in, indict. Ingent. Oh, Betsy cried. Look, the roof of the house is falling. Let me reset that. Oh, Betsy cried. Look, the roof of the house is falling. A wave of heat drove the girls back a few steps, and unexpectedly, a thick cloud of smoke blew towards them. Nancy choked and gasped. When the smoke did not clear away, she ran to escape it. Bess and George had sketched in opposite directions, and when Nancy looked about for them, they were not in sight. Before she could call their names, the wind brought another cloud of dense smoke swirling down upon her. Blinkingly, Nancy stumbled towards the driveway, where it covered around the rear of the house. She ran straight into a small wooden stretcher, and the impact nearly knocked her over. As the smoke drifted away, she could not help laugh. Only a doghouse, she thought. Luckily, there was no mean dog in it to attack me. As Nancy started back to the driveway, she caught sight of a small, leaflet covered book lying a few feet from the doghouse. Eagerly, Nancy snatched it up. She decided that the book must have been dropped that day. Otherwise, the cover would have been ruined by a heavy rain of the the other night. Nancy was struck with a sudden idea. When running across the black lawn of the burning house, the mysterious tall stranger must have passed this very spot. Could he have dropped the book? Perhaps I've stumbled on a clue, Nancy thought excitedly. Okay, that's the end of chapter 1. If you want to see chapter 2, I'll be here tomorrow. And I'll read chapter 2. There are... Let me check how many chapters there are in this book. There are... There are 20 chapters. Just to let you know. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, peeps.